river terraces, which
Yeah.
is what you adopted in your initial proposal.
Okay, so that's all right. So, okay, so we'll now move up the river to Huntley.
Taupiri's the same, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry, Taupiri, I forgot about Taupiri.
It didn't have any changes either, but
Yep.
what I did raise in the report was consideration of whether some submissions did indicate that the numbers could change in community board areas if you had more community boards, but that's a separate issue that we can talk about at the end.
Yeah, I just want to look at boundary stuff. I don't want to talk about numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Taupiri, Councillor Gibb.
Your Worship, I just want to touch on Ngārawa here. So do we need to reconsider removing Horatū from their community board or not? If they made that decision based on the proposed ward boundaries that were going out?
So you're saying that I'm just trying to find, oh yeah, okay. So I'm looking at Ngārawa here now, and what went out in the proposal, which removed Horatū. So what are you saying, that we need to have a discussion as to whether Horatū be removed or left in?
Well, I'm just wondering, it's only a question because of I wasn't sure if Councillor Patterson can help whether they made that decision based on the proposed ward changes or whether it was just a different reason. Can you help?
No, you're correct, Janet, is that the decision to take Horatū out was because it was not going to be in our ward anymore. It was going to be part of the Horseshoe. So with the Jaguar, I think it's back into our ward. So if that's the case, I think the community board would prefer to leave it as originally, with Horatū still in the community board area.
And I understand that it could affect Te Kōwhai and Whara villages. They have hall committees, which obviously do get listened to as well, but the Horatū community do not have a committee. So I'm just raising the awareness of this. So whether I don't think it's going to be massively impacted, but it was just a point I wondered about.
No, good point though. Yeah, because I'm looking at the map now and get what you said. So basically, I would suggest a suggestion that we bring Horatū back in as it was originally. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What about you, Councillor Patterson?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Have you got that, Kayleen?
Yes, Your Worship. The only issue with that is that the Horatū boundaries didn't cover all of Horatū. It was historical of the area that it covered at the time. So yes, you want to bring the existing portion that was in Horatū back in, but what about the rest of Horatū?
Look, they've used the river as their boundary effectively. And I'm loath to draw new lines on maps.
Okay.
That haven't been indicated.
Okay.
All right. So, Councillor Smith, is this to do with Ngārawa Community Board?
I'm just asking, where is the submission to submission points asking for Horatū to be retained in Ngārawa? Putting aside the fact that it wasn't there because of a ward boundary proposal, but you're now trying to reinstate something that they neither submitted on nor any other submitter has brought forward. So are we going right out of scope here when there's no submissions, or is this consistent? Anyway, I'm just asking.
Well, I take my lead from the two ward councillors in relation to this community board.
Oh, you didn't do that with the wards, so I'm surprised. Thanks.
Well, I'm sorry, Councillor Smith, we did have lots of submissions about your issues, so you're just not looking at the right way. I've taken a lead from the two councillors. Look, I think I'll back to you two.
Yep. Look,
Councillor.
Marilyn, look, it was the only reason why Horatu was taken out, and we've been building up a really good relationship with the Horatu community in the last in this term, and so it was taken in good faith to remove that because they weren't going to be part of the ward structure that we'd gone out with, and I think everybody would be happy to go back to the status quo and have them included again, as well as the Horatu community, because we've had not full discussions, but there was discussions around when Galen and them talked to the community boards, and they understood the reasons for it at that time. So with them being back included into us, I think that they should stay with us again.
All right, does anybody have an opposing opinion on that?
Councillor Willerton.
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm sort of not too worried either way, but I think that we could look at a community committee out there that might help. Also, I heard quite clearly early on that a community board can cross ward boundaries. So with that in mind, I don't see why anything should change now, because just because it wasn't in the ward initially, I don't understand why now that it is in the ward it should be any different, because that was one of the criteria that went out. But certainly community committees need to be looked at maybe for them. Thank you.
So you're saying leaving as it is then? Yeah. Councillor Gibb?
Just to clarify, Councillor Wallerton, it was originally, and it is at the moment currently in the boundary for the community board in this term, just in case you misunderstood what I was saying. But I can see benefits for a committee as well, because yeah, despite the fact that they are currently included in our boundary, nobody from that community has ever put their hand up to stand for the board. So look, I'm not precious either way, but if they do not get included, I think that Councillor Patterson and I would recommend they establish a committee. So thanks for that input, Councillor Wallerton.
All right, I look at this one and would strongly suggest we leave it at the status quo. And I think leave it there.
Your Worship, the status quo plus a couple of extended boundaries in the Narrawahia they had added across the river, I believe, and
Yes.
including river terraces on by the golf course.
Can you explain what status quo is? Because is that status quo now or status quo as the proposal?
No, status quo as it is now.
So, except with as Councillor Gibbs said, with the extension into river terraces, and the other small boundary changes that were made to cover that growth within Ngunnawahia itself.
Okay, yeah. All right. Is that what your suggestion is, Dale?
Just regarding Councillor Smith's point, there was a submitter, Tony Perkins, that referred to Horatu does not want to be removed from Ngunnawahia, so we may have a basis for that with that submission.
Yeah, I remember Tony saying that actually. Exactly right. You've got a good memory, Dale. You've been doing this job a long time. All right, so we'll do that and include their amendments to it. Okay, everyone happy? Righto, Taupo was.
Oh, can I have a mover and seconder for that,
Oh,
Your
okay.
Worship?
Councillor Gibb and Patterson, all in favour, please raise their hands. Favour, carried. Righto, Taupo was status quo.
Your Worship, plus a slight extension to the boundary because of the growth in Taupori. Whatever it was that Anton put out there in the map, and I can't quite recall.
So
He had
I've
to
got
do it.
I've got the map in front of me. So it's as per the map that Anton has sent through to me.
Yes.
Which is the map of the proposed Taupo Community Board area, which is.
Yes, that's right.
Slight extension, but within mesh block capability.
There's no extension shown here. It just shows the map with a red line around it.
Anton might be able to help.
Anton?
So the
community board that went out into the proposal didn't have any extensions. The 3 mesh blocks that were under consideration all extended quite a significant distance into the rural area, portion of Turco. They're quite big.
Okay.
Tokri, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Status quo.
Status quo. All right. We'll go on to Huntley now. Now, where's Huntley? Oh, here we go. Now, the interesting thing that David White raised with his one was he didn't realise it required to be done by mesh blocks. Now, Galen and I had quite a substantial discussion about that the other day. And when we spoke to the community board when first presented it, we made it clear that they had to incorporate it. It was made up of mesh blocks. So I was a bit disappointed when David come back and said nobody told him that, which is just not correct, because Galen and I can both remember that. Now, the other thing that he pointed out, because he just drew lines on maps, so they've got one amendment, which I don't have a problem with, which goes down Okafau Road and cuts around. It basically encapsulates part of Tiahaki Road just north of the power station and around the, not quite all the way to the Tikari Marae, Tiahaki Marae, I should say. So I don't have an issue with that. But the other one in relation to Western Heights, Anton looked at that yesterday in relation to a mesh block, and if you incorporate Western Heights in as a mesh block, it incorporates a quarry into the town. Now, I'm not too sure whether the community would be that fussed about that idea, considering the feeling by a lot of people.
Didn't realise that.
Yeah, I knew it did, because I'd looked at this a long time ago, and that's why Western Heights is not in there, because it encapsulates the quarry. That's the Cox, and I can just imagine the rhetoric about that.
I know what their problem was, is that like Weaver's Crossing is on one side is community board and the other side is not.
Well, that's not what this
And
map tells me, Councillor. Both sides are.
Now.
Now.
Yeah, they weren't at the last election though.
They are, because that's what this
But they
map
are now.
in front of you. Yeah.
So you're saying don't include
No, all I'm saying is if you want to put Western Heights in like David suggested, you will have that mesh block encapsulates the quarry.
No, don't want to do that. Frank?
The way I read it, the quarry's already in the Huntley block.
No, it's not.
We finish it.
It's not, Frank.
Wright's Bridge.
No, it doesn't,
The main
Frank.
entrance to it is.
No, it doesn't, Frank. I got the map in front of me here. It doesn't.
Can I ask
Yeah,
what
I have the
difference?
impression the southern boundary stops at Wright's Bridge. That's the end of it.
No, it doesn't,
Past
Frank.
the quarry.
No, it doesn't, Frank.
Can I ask a question?
So
of
where
why
on
the
Riverview
quarry-
Road does it stop?
Hang on, I'm talking to Frank. It stops just around the corner past, what's it called? Wharf Lane.
So Taxi Hill's not part of us at all.
Taxi Hill is, but you go around the corner from Taxi Hill and it's not.
But the quarry, Frank.
The next mesh block will incorporate the houses from there along, including the
Oh,
quarry,
yeah,
and
okay,
back up
yeah.
over on
Yeah.
Western Heights Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want that.
I think
Yeah, I
where you're
wouldn't be
getting
impressed with that
confused,
too
Frank,
much.
we do have targeted rates. That's still in the Huntley ward. It's just not in the community board area.
Yeah.
Mm.
So from there on, it's
I'm
still
with
in
you.
Huntley,
Yeah,
but not
okay.
the community board. So you don't want it in?
No.
No.
Not or that condition. Don't
So
want to inherit
just-
the quarry.
Yeah, so just accept the amendment that the community board have put through in relation to going down Okafau Road and across to Tiahaki Road. You happy to support that?
Yes, fair enough. Yeah.
Are you happy to move and second that in that way?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll move that way. Yep.
Okay. Councillor Gibb, did you want to say something?
I was just trying to understand what's the negative of having the quarry in, because what difference does it make to the community board if they're in? It just means that you can then get those other residential people. So I was just trying to understand the reasoning behind the negative to the quarry.
There's a fair bit of politics behind this, council, local
Yeah.
politics, I would say, council, and some
But
strong.
does it make any difference in the end?
Well, I probably don't think it does. But at the end of the day, I think if it was included, I think there would be some people who would be pretty upset about it. They didn't understand that.
Yeah.
And I think the two ward councillors are probably agreeing with that view. You need to
Yeah.
Give you
understand
a list
the
of names
dynamic.
now if you want.
Yeah. Councillor Smith.
Well, it's actually on the same point, is that whether people like or dislike a ratepayer is irrelevant to the discussion, surely. And whilst I know the politics on some of it, I don't obviously claim to know all about it, but the company is not well disposed, or the community is not well disposed to that entity. But that is not an issue for consideration under this, surely. So I'm sort of in the same vein as Councillor Gibb as to what are the merits really of excluding it if that area should be.
Councillors, do you want to answer that? Because I don't have an opinion either way on this one. I just wanted to highlight it.
We've got to live in the town. It's as simple as that.
Well, no, I think it's better that the quarry not be included.
All right. I'll
Because
take my lead from you two on that.
If the quarry's included, the community board are going to have to take over all the protests and the complaints. The community board are going to have to be the ones who deal with the quarry, and the quarry is going to become an ongoing, consistent issue. It's better if they don't have to, and it's left to council to do. Do you follow me?
Got more clout.
Yeah.
All right. Look, I don't want to hold up on this. Anton?
Just wanted to, can I do a quick screen share, please? Just to show you where there are two mesh blocks. Just give me a minute.
This is
Can you see the screen share now?
Yep.
Yeah, trying to figure out what. Yep.
So we've got Huntley over here, Narrow here, down over here. This mesh block over here, if I highlight it yellow, that's got Western Height Roads down edge over here. And this mesh block that goes down to the back of the Hakramata has got the part of the quarry, one up here and then the other one over here. So they're two slightly different mesh blocks, but I'm not sure what the property boundaries are for those. So yeah, some of these big properties go over the mesh block.
So the quarry actually does cover all probably bottom half of that second mesh block. Look, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Maybe the councillors want to include the second mesh block and not the first one. I don't know.
So
It makes a bit of sense.
My
The
only
second one, not the first.
Yes, councillors said Lynch.
As I say, my only concern is the Huntley Community Board getting embroiled in suits against the quarry, which is on the cards.
Okay, so look, once again, I'll back to you too, because this is an incredibly contentious issue, not just for community board members, but for the whole town. So you're saying leave well alone?
Yeah, I am. Frank, what do you reckon?
Leave it alone.
Mm.
Don't poke sleeping dogs with a stick.
Okay, so we're not going to poke sleeping dogs with a stick. We're going to leave well alone. So we've got a mover and a seconder to leave that with that one amendment that's been I've talked about. So all in favour, please raise a hand. Carried.
Your worship.
That's that sleeping dog. Yes,
Your
Councillor?
worship, I just wanted to point out that in that amendment, so there's actually a few changes. So there's the Huntley Western Edge, Huntley Berryman access, and the Teohaki Road portion. that are being added into the community board
they've been
area.
added. So that is Berryman's access.
Yeah.
Okefell Road.
Yep.
And off the end of that down towards Lake Okefell and across down onto Te Agi. Yeah, I'm looking at the map here. Look,
Yep. Okay.
That sort of that makes sense.
We can live with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Next one up the road is 1, 2, 3, Tuakau. So this is a bigger one. So probably the decision that needs to be made here with the Tuakau one is, do we support the proposal, I suppose, of Tuakau as identified on the maps, a community board for Tuakau, and a community board with the residual on the western side of the river, making up another community board, encapsulating the same area that's already encapsulated. So probably need to sort this out first in relation to a sixth community board. And when I spoke to the team the other day, one of my oppositions has always been around creating more community boards, and especially in rural areas, you need to base it around a community. You can't just have residential addresses down a road as a community board. And when I looked at this the other day and thought more about it, you can create, I feel anyway, satisfy myself, a community board in that area, but it would be based around the village of, or the community of Port Waikato, effectively. Because there is, what did we say, 300 and so many people live there, I think it was. We looked at the population, 350 or 60 people, permanent residents there. So there is actually grounds, I think, to create it around it. There is a community that actually underpins what the intent of, or part of the intent of the original purpose of setting up community boards. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Look, I think I acknowledge that there was a number of submitters wanting to stick with status quo, and yet the balance probably to me swings towards a split with the community board being on the western side. But I wonder where the legitimate basis is to have a community board centred around a community complex. We do see, obviously, in other parts of the country, rural community boards that actually have several different communities identified within their catchment. But just on that note, in terms of the boundary, whatever we're looking at, the boundary, there is support. We've received submissions from Te Akau to consider extending the boundary.
Councillor, can I stop you just there? I'm only supporting staying to the original boundaries of what's there, because that's what the submissions were. I know John Jackson mentioned about community board in Te Akau, and it's a different subject again. So I think at the moment you can only deal with what's on the drawing, and that is the current community board and how you split that community board. So that's what's up for debate here.
Okay, can I just get a bit of clarification around that in terms of consistency then? If we have had submissions from other community boards to extend their boundaries, why can we not consider a request from other submitters to extend this boundary for my own interest?
Okay, so I never heard any submitter that talked about extending that boundary.
John Jackson.
John Jackson talked about a community board and around Te Akau on that.
No, as did a number of the present community board boundary on the western side had a view to extending the boundary and democracy.
So you're talking about creating a ward-sized community board?
Correct, correct.
I would never support that, personally myself.
We've had submitters requesting that.
I just said I wouldn't support it myself. Okay.
Okay. Can we have
Councillor
a discussion?
Henderson. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. I am in favour of the split, having been a member of the Onewhero Tuakau Community Board back when it was in Franklin days and when it first came into the Waikato. It worked then, but I'm seeing it not working now. The town does need that urban representation, and I'm not quite sure how divisions work in a rural community board? I would appreciate some more information on those.
When you say divisions, how do you mean divisions?
I understand so that you get representation across the whole rural area, that it can be done in divisions.
Oh, look, I don't know about that. Dale, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, what council is referring to is subdivisions of community board areas. So you could have a community board area and it could be divided into 3 separate areas within the one area, and you might have 2 elected from each of those 3 areas to make up your 6, for example.
Okay, cool, understand now. Councillor Church.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with the idea that the Onewhero Tuakau Community Board does split on that urban-rural boundary. I do think it's also an opportunity for the rural areas. I hear what Councillor Eyre says about the extension, but I think it's a good step forward for that rural area from the river south to Te Akau at the moment to, settle into being a community board of their own. And then, if they feel like they need to extend that, they can obviously come back to council either as a 3-year or a 6-year review next time. I think that's a big enough change for them to get their head around what they're doing. And I do also agree with what Councillor Henderson's saying, that it should be considered for the rural area south of the river, let's call it the Onewhero Te Akau, Port Waikato area, that whether they consider to do that in the subdivision, because I think that will perhaps assure all representation in that new community board area. But that's obviously, I think, part of that consultation that they can choose. And in saying that, with that consultation, you have council has mentioned the non-priority of community boards over community committees, which I think is also a valid point. So when we do consult, if we're going to make a decision on a community board, I'm all for that. But if you're going to make the decision that you just want to consult with them, whether they want a community board or community committee, then obviously I would be supportive of that. Either way, the split, but definitely giving them valid information to enhance the rural side and to feel that they've got their rural voice and equity. That's great.
Okay, some good points there. Councillor Beck.
Yeah, just following on from Councillor Church, I think, this is not my area. It's not an area I know well, so I respect the comments from the local councillors from that area. What I did hear through submissions, I think, is quite clearly that if Onewhero, the submissions we had from Onewhero, if there were to be a split, then they'd want a board, not a committee. So I think, notwithstanding Councillor Church's comments just there, I think let's assume it's a board, because that seemed to be a clear voice. And there were submissions from across the other side of the river that a split would be preferable. That seems to have been reinforced also from Councillor Henderson. So I'm in favour of a split and a new board.
Hey, can I just ask Dale some clarity around this? So can we recommend the creation, because we've got ample submissions supporting the split and the approach. So through this process, can we just recommend the creation of a new community board based off that data?
I believe you can.
Okay, no, that's all right. And I think I go back to Councillor Church's point in relation to creation of the community board of the balance on the other side of the river from Tuakau. She does raise a point in respect to, in the future, if other areas wish to come in to it, and I would be in that area, so I'll always be opposed to it. So I might be a submitter in 6 years' time in opposition of it. That it could be looked at that time, but I couldn't support looking at it as an option at the moment. I think this community is asked specifically if they're going to be split off, they want to be in charge of their own destiny in a way, and I think probably what we're talking about here is doing exactly that. Councillor Willerton.
Yeah, I heard the same talk. Everyone was going on the legalities of a board versus a committee, but what I didn't hear was the cost of a board versus a committee. And so if they want a board, well, as long as they're aware there's going to be an extra cost, and I don't want to hear any bleating when they get that cost. So that's basically, I want that point conveyed quite clearly to them. Thank you.
All right. And just so everybody knows, as I referred to on Friday, I've sort of commissioned that work through Tony. So that work will roll out, but it's nothing to do with this process whatsoever. But that work has been rolled out. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Just to that point, Councillor Willerton, I think probably that's a conversation to have in the future across all of the community boards, not just this specific area. But I do have a question, and excuse me if it does appear ignorant. If there wasn't support for a ward community board that encompasses the whole Port Waikato boundary, ward boundary, is somebody able to, outside of that catchment, still stand for the community board to be heard?
Yep.
Okay.
Just a little clarity for you, councillor. So you don't have to live in, if you're standing for a councillor or for a community board, you do not have to live in it. You just need to be nominated and seconded by two people that do live within it.
Yeah, I knew that applied to ward. I was unsure if it applied to a community board, but thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think that's where the issue got wrong with the what David mentioned the other day about the person that lived on Western Heights that wanted to be in the community board. They actually got their neighbour, obviously, to sign it, and not somebody that lived within the community board to sign it. And that's where that came unstuck. Gayleen.
So, Your Worship, there's two issues to be considered here. There is the
well, can I just deal with the first one? So is everybody, I just need to get the split thing done first. So is everybody supportive that we split the board to start with? Thumbs up to everybody. Okay, so we've got it split. Now, next bit for you, Gayleen.
So the Tuakau, what went out in the initial proposal was the proposed Tuakau ward, which is now changed. So whilst it did have mainly the township, and Anton can clarify this, so we just have to refine that map for your meeting on the 28th of where you want that new Tuakau Community Board to cover.
So we'll need to do a little bit of work around that, because the map that I'm looking at includes the current community board with a little bit nipped off it on Potter Road, I think it is, and Barsby Buckland Road, I think there's a little bit been nicked off it, but it includes a piece over on Parker Lane on the other side. So
the Tuakau West boundary is a bit different to that in the Jaguar map. So we would just need to get some maps out to you for those additional mesh blocks, and also just confirm, because Pōkeno and Tuakau are in the same ward, where the community board boundary sits between those two.
Probably you'd leave them historically where they've sat now, I would think.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, Gayleen, next one. All right, Councillor Church.
Yes, Your Worship, because also in our last representation review, we did actually extend the boundaries of the Tuakau community, the Onewhero Tuakau Community Board in the Tuakau area for growth. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it needs to be checked and looked at, but I think I don't recall any submissions to change it further, but yeah, definitely need to, check those boundaries.
All right, that's cool. Just trying to look myself, actually, trying to figure out where I am here.
So we can do some maps for the final proposal meeting on the 28th for you to be able to confirm that boundary, because there was no indication that Pōkeno wanted to change to a community board. They were happy as a community committee.
Correct. That's went through their formal meetings.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, we'll get the team, Anton, to tidy that up, and that'll come back to us on the 28th. And the next one is on the other side of the river, is our new community board based on existing boundaries. Does anybody want to, Gayleen, we talked about names.
Yes. So you do have to give us a name for the new community board area. And what the working group had a discussion about was that and that's when the report Port Waikato and Districts Community Board was the proposed name.
So anything, Councillor here?
Thank you. In respect of the name, I have heard a really strong message from the people that have submitted on this side that they like an identity of that such a community board being rural, and I would be really supportive of having somewhere rural identity in the name.
So,
and I would propose something more along the lines of Western Rural Community Board or something to that effect.
Can't use that because we've already used that name. Your new ward is going to be called Western Districts on your out this way. So
okay, or something along the lines of Port Waikato.
You need to associate it with a community. That's why I said it pivots off Port Waikato. So you could call it Port Waikato Onifero, Port Waikato Pukekawa, call it whatever you want, but it needs to pivot off the community of greatest numbers, which is
okay.
Port Waikato.
Okay, in that regard, then I would suggest something like Port Waikato /rural. So then it actually does capture the rural component as well as that township.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Church.
Yes, I'm thinking along the lines of Councillor Eyre, Port Waikato and Rural Communities Board, something like that, because I think districts, personally, I actually live over the river as well in this area we're talking about. District seems too big, where we're actually a lot of associated communities, but I think that the rural communities, Port Waikato and rural communities, might pick up what you're trying to reinforce, Councillor Eyre.
All right, you happy with that? So yeah, I probably dropped a clanger on Councillor Eyre then, because when we looked at the in the maps for that Western ward, which is currently your ward, Councillor, the one we came up with, Western Districts, and I know it sounds like a cricket team, but the reason why I did it, because I started counting up, and there's a roughly, and I haven't counted them all, but there's roughly somewhere between 15 to 20 districts that actually are in that ward. So that's where even where I live, I've got 5 around me districts, which are actually all moved into that ward. So that's why I used the name Western Districts. I don't know whether you have a view on that or not. Right. Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, just in regard to that, I'd actually support Councillor Church's recommendation as Port Waikato /rural district.
Yeah, that's on my. I'm talking about the ward, not the community board. The ward.
Oh,
yeah,
the ward name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to think about that anyway.
Yeah, well, can I think about that one? Yeah.
Yeah, think about it down the road. It was just a suggestion. Rightio. So what do we need to do, Galen, around the community board?
So I've got the Tuakau Community Board with us confirming maps back to you on the 28th of defining the exact areas of the Tuakau Community Board, and the rural portion being changed to Port Waikato and rural community west. Yeah. So if we use communities and rural communities community board, it gets very long-winded. So, but we can just put Port Waikato.
Okay. So Port Waikato and yeah, okay. Somebody think about a name and before we finish today, get that sorted out.
Yep.
Your worship, it's probably no longer than Onifero Tiaka, Tuakau Onifero Tiaka Community Board. I mean, I think yeah, I mean, it would be an acronym anyway at the end of it, I'm sure. Yeah, so I think it's important that the name reflects it.
And I'm sure somebody will come up with an acronym for it.
So I need a mover and a seconder for those 2 community board changes.
Councillor Church. Can I see Councillor Eyre? All right, no further discussion. I'll put it. All show your hands, please. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Right, we'll trundle down the road and come our full circle and go down to Whangaroa, which is Ragland. which I've got here somewhere. Where is that one? Rightio, so we went out with the current status quo of Ragland. There was 3 submitters, 2 of them belonging to the community board, and one who always submits, John Lawson, who we all know very well. John wasn't as strong on it though, which amazed me. He has been in the past, but he certainly wasn't this time. But it suggested that the community board be extended further out to Waitatuna, Timata, and through there. Now, I have a differing view from that because there's no submissions from those people out there wanting to come into the community board. Now, I spoke to Gabrielle about 2 months ago and said she would need to canvass support from those communities out there. There's over 250 properties affected by that. It's a huge impact on a lot of people. And so I don't support that because it's coming from the community board. It's not coming from the community to support that approach. And it's the same as what I said last time. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just with regard to that, that's not exactly true, because when you go through the submissions, there are actually submitters. There was Simon Thompson, there was Paulina, there was also Pauline Walters, there was also Neil, and Bruce Cameron actually mentioned in his submission as well with regard to, listening to the community boards. And I do know that the community board, actually each member, Dennis Armour included, who's, he lives in Raglan, but they've also got a farm, to canvass, even though not specifically people went in there, the community board, and as Gabriel spoke to last week, spoke to a number of community members outside of those who lived in Raglan who were supportive of extension of the community board area to only include Timata, Orkiti and Tiuku, not Waitatuna, because they felt that was a push too far. And so the comments, when I'm going through here where it goes, the Whaingaroa general ward theme, extend, you have got people have spoken about that, and I know it was Chris and Gabriel putting that in. So I would support it, and I think this is the second time where the board, since I've been on, have actually submitted to extend the community board area, and they do know the community. That's why we have elected members just like us to speak to these issues, because they have intimate knowledge more so than others in council. So I support what the community board and Chris and others have actually said. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so you talked about O'Kitty Road. O'Kitty?
Orkiti, so
yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah, and around to the likes of Orkiti, and then there's Checkley Road, and down through to Tiuku. And so we'd have to look at a map because it would depend on how far it would go.
So you look at the boundary on O'Kitty Road. So there's 2 side roads off O'Kitty Road.
Yeah, which is Checkley and which map are you looking at, Mayor Allen?
I'm looking on Google.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got the roads here. I thought they wanted to go a hell of a lot further than that.
No, it's actually because we recognised, like the likes of Ortonga Valley Road, Cogswell Road's too far out, Waitatuna was too far out. It would probably.
So if you take in O'Kitty Road and the other side roads which loop around.
Yeah, I'm showing on Google Maps.
Okay, and then you come across to Timata Road. And yeah. And follow Timata Road and that runs all the way up to Ruapuki if you want to go all the way.
But that's already part of the community board area.
Okay.
So it splits down Timata Road. So where you're looking there, I'll just go on these ones. So you've got, oh, I'm pointing at it, but of course you can't see where I'm pointing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't realise you had that up there.
Going by mesh block, that's Okiti Road. That's one mesh block.
Yep.
Yep.
The next mesh block goes up through, this is Wainara Road.
Yep.
And
That
then
might be a push too far.
and then we get, let's find the name, to Cogswell is the third mesh block. So that those start becoming very large mesh blocks.
Yeah, no, the community board, that like those, it would be probably the first mesh block.
Yep.
There.
Road mesh block.
Yeah, there. Because otherwise when we go that to Waingaro and out, although there was an interest, that would be too far for, you know, but then Timata would include the, you know, going to the school, and because it goes Timata Road, then onto Ruapuki. So it would include the school and probably go as far as Waimaori Road.
Okay, so at the junction at the school there, where it goes out Ruapuki, so
Yeah.
you're talking turning back that way?
Yep, and going down more of Timata Road and then up sort of Waimaori, which takes it out to the coast.
Don't have a problem with that. I thought they wanted a heck of a lot more than that.
No, it was actually, Chris was quite thoughtful because he had looked at where the mesh blocks were, Anton, that you were using, and you probably, because it's split when you go along from State Highway 23 and right onto Timata Road, because it goes up Timata Road, but it only includes the right-hand side if you're driving out to Timata. So I don't know if we can have both sides. That might include Pond Road and then to Waimaori. And I think that would probably be as really realistically where the boundary would naturally fit. Any further, it's too far.
Yeah. All right. So you're happy to support that amendment? Oh, where are you going, Anton?
Okay, so this mesh block over here, is the one that picks up this Timata school. So this is the big jump. If we zoom out, we go down Timata Road and stops short of the school.
Yep. Next
Mesh block includes the school, and that's where it gets quite a significantly bigger.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, because there were submitters that were down on the west coast, like Matawhā Road, and that who were. So what if we were to go onto the western side of the school?
On the other side of the line, Anton.
That's the other side of the line is already in the.
But it stops. It stops one side of Ruapuki Road on if you're driving on the mountain side is included, but on the left-hand side of the road between Waimaori and Ruapuki isn't included.
No, this area is outside.
The trouble is, Lisa, when you actually start to include those, because it's sparsely populated out there, you get huge mesh blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem. You don't get the little ones anymore. See, that's Ruapuki Beach.
Yeah.
That's one
all
mesh
the way
block.
down to Aotea Harbour.
Oh yeah, so that is too big. That like that looks like if you click on that last and take that one, that there. Oh, if you go back, Anton, and unclick the last two, that one, and that one, and then that looks better in terms of what we've got there.
Because a lot of that is just land with not a lot of people in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out. What is it, Anton, if we were to look at another mesh block from the Okiti Road, and then you've got the one that you've put in there from Timata, is in between Okiti and Timata, back towards you. Is that too big?
So let's
That
just
takes
see
a long way out.
just shy of the Waitatuna Valley Road.
Yeah, but it doesn't include Waitatuna though,
No,
does it?
no.
That looks really. that looks all right, that one there. That looks really massive, that this third one you've done.
Your Worship, can I have a question?
Yep.
Yeah, that looks good there.
So I know Councillor Thompson, this being guided, I'm hearing what your words are around some, like the mesh box being possibly too big, but not necessarily capturing where you want to go in terms of those communities of interest.
Yeah.
So again, is this just a story where the mesh block is not as important as capturing the people? So, I mean, we heard from Councillor Henderson at the beginning of today that although mesh blocks are important, that they can actually be, they're not the final answer. So I'm wondering whether this map would be better for the communities of interest, but half of these mesh blocks, but further along to the south, perhaps. So the question is, can we look at this map for the community board extension, not based on the mesh blocks, but more on the logical and communities of interest point of view that what I hear Councillor Thompson's trying to do?
I think what Councillor Thompson's trying to do is currently the boundary runs up Timata Road until it gets to Timata, where it hits where the intersection of Ruapuki, I say, not Tipuki, but it only covers one side of the road.
Yeah, yeah.
And the minute you bring the other side of the road in, the trouble is it's, I don't know how many people are in that mesh block, but I'm not worried about the size of it because most of it's unpopulated. So,
but they're also, Mayor Allen, just to that, like on the other side of Ruapuki Road, for example, that's not in the Raglan area. There's actually a lot more people living out there than you would think, on the lifestyle blocks and things like that, and who do consider, Raglan as their town, because a lot of around the mountain there, and further towards the south, actually to Aotea, loads of people, that Raglan is their community of interest. Like they go to school, they do their shopping, they play rugby, they play soccer, all of those things. And I get that it's a big mesh block, and it's probably something that I'd need to, the first two mesh blocks, Anton, that we had up there, that felt really good. And then I get what you mean about when we go on to the southern side of Karioi, it gets really big. So I'm comfortable with those two mesh blocks there.
So Dale, can I ask that question again around the community boards and those mesh blocks?
And that one there, yeah, that looks, yeah.
How closely to the mesh blocks do we have to do for any amendment to the community board boundaries?
We must adhere to mesh blocks. They're the smallest unit that we have to use. So we can get them changed, but it's a bit of a process to get them changed, and it's only an annual thing. But there's still a minimum number of people that are required within a mesh block. So we have no option but to use mesh block boundaries.
Right.
Can't create our own thoughts on this.
Thank you.
Look, I don't have a problem with that because for my mind, where Anton's scribe is, you take everything to the right of that as unpopulated people. So it looks big, but there's a minimum number of people in there.
Yeah.
So if that's what they want, I don't have an issue with that. It was when you were getting way further out towards not Timata, Waitatuna and further out there.
Yeah, that was, and the board were all in agreement that was actually just too far, and that you'd split the community because people just, people are over in Hamilton. Raglan isn't their community of interest. They go to school in different places. So I wouldn't support that either. But I'm comfortable with those. If there was an ability to go a bit further south and to the west, it would be really great, because a lot of that on the southern side of Ruapuki Road, the people that live there, Raglan is their community of interest.
Trouble is then it goes down to Aotea Harbour.
Yeah, and I didn't realise that actually, that it went. So although people on that side of Aotea do consider that Raglan is their community of interest, it's sparsely populated. And I do know that the Raglan Area School, our zoning for school actually covers those mesh blocks right down to Aotea actually.
Are you happy just to leave it with what's on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. Let's wrap this up then. Gayleen?
I was just going to add that you could do similar to what we've done to Tuako and have the final map for that community board area being adopted on the 28th.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. I've just about run out of things on my list when I can find it.
So I need a mover and seconder. I gather Councillor Thompson's the mover.
Yeah. Seconder, please. Councillor Eyre. Beck. All in favour? Raise a hand. Done. I've done full circle now. Sorry.
Except you haven't dealt with the issue on the Huntly Community Board request regarding their name.
Oh, yeah, okay. So now when David submitted, he submitted Rahui Pokeka. Huntly, you've still got you can't just have Rahui Pokeka because it's not an official name. It's a local name. So you still need to have Huntly there. It's whether you have Huntly first or Huntly second. And I'll take guidance from the two councillors on this one.
So I'll go first. I don't think we should make a decision on this today. I think we need to do a little bit more research. Rahui Pokeka was never a name for Huntly East. It wasn't even mentioned before 1868. The east side of the river which was the English settlement, was named Huntly. There was no mention ever of Rahui Pokeka. When the pub was created, which was the army post, when the pub was created by the Guy of Stuart, it was called Rahui. That's it. I don't think this is something we should do without consultation.
Councillor McAnally?
Yeah, I believe this has been driven by a small group of radicals on the community board. It had only been in Huntly 5 minutes. When this first surfaced some months ago, a certain group now living over in Wangmatar threatened to hop in a minibus and come to the community board meeting. It would have been hell on. You probably know who some of them are. It's got to go before the people of Huntly before you decide a thing like this. I'll tell you the outcome now. It's not going to happen. It's driven by a group of radicals, 5-minute wonders, I call them. Just remember, those on the community board went in unopposed, basically. I've got no time for this. No.
It doesn't matter if it comes about, it's fine, but it needs to be researched and it needs to be consulted on.
Got to go before the people of Huntly.
Okay, Councillor Sedgwick.
I do recall in the past there have been quite a few submissions to the council on that name. I don't recall anything in more recent times, but I know that a wide variety of people have petitioned us on this previously or presented to us as well.
So just before I go to Galen, I just want to clarify what David's submission, in my mind, what it said. He asked if the community board name could be changed to Rahui Pokeka Huntly. And that was my understanding of the submission. Am I right, Galen?
Yeah, well, so they only mentioned Rahui Pokeka, but
yeah, they didn't say Huntly.
No, but the compromise could be, and we're only talking about the name of the community board councillors. We're not talking about the name of Huntly overall.
No,
yeah,
you can't.
People
you can't
decide this one.
Yeah, you can't do. I don't believe you can do that. I think you have to. The community board didn't consult with anybody. They just decided amongst themselves, the 6 of them, that they would just like to have it named Rahui Pokeka. And I just don't think you can do that. We've just got into major discussions about what the community boards are going to be called up north.
Councillor Church.
Thank you, Your Worship. But here's my question goes to what we're talking is. My question is, as part of this representation review, do we have to discuss the renaming of the community board to go forward? Or can this be, as I'm hearing loud and clear on both sides of the fence, that this is something that the community board and the council can manage in the next 6 months? I personally don't think I've got enough information to make a decision. I would like to hear from mana whenua. I would like to hear from our own delegates, as well as, so I'm not comfortable in voting on this, but do we have to do this now, or can they do a name change as required in the future? That's my question.
Yeah, answer that. Turn your mic on, Dale. Not good at lip reading.
Sorry, I was pushing the space bar, but it wasn't working. We have to land on a name for the final proposal, whether it's the same one or a new one, but we have to land on a name. And I believe we can change the name at a later stage, but we must have a name now.
It's the Huntly Community Board.
Right. So
if it ain't broke, you don't fix it.
What I'm saying is, so we could, to answer my question, we could just have the existing Huntly Community Board, but the council could give a direction to support that consultation going forward with the community board and the community in the future.
Yeah.
And so
in the future, not this week.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that would be, I would be comfortable with that.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I hear what my fellow councillors have said, but was there an outroar, Shelley and Frank, with the name change of the train platform?
Yes, there was. Different story, that one.
But have people accepted it as the double name with the Māori and the English name?
I've not heard it, Lisa. So I've only heard of the Huntly railway station. That's all I hear from people. The half dozen who catch the train, they catch it at the Huntly railway station. It's not, Rahui Pokek is not a common name that's put about.
So would my question then is, so people would still probably refer to the Huntly Community Board, so
as the Huntly Community Board.
And then those, if you had it, both names, then those who wish to use the Māori and the English name could. So there's that compromise.
But it's something that needs to be discussed more fully.
Yeah.
But I did my own research, so I went to the museum so that I could be clear in my head where the name Rahui Pokeka came from. And so I know, to my satisfaction, I would like the Huntly Community Board to do some research on it themselves, because they haven't got it correct.
They've been listening to Timmy Mighty, that's the problem.
Yeah, Frank, don't bring that
right.
up.
No.
All right,
serious.
Councillor Sedgwick.
We've just been I have no position either way on this, but we've just been talking and trying to find a name for a new community board. And I don't believe that in any of that conversation was there any discussion about putting up a name and consulting with the community. So I think you're getting things mixed up here. It's the name of the board. It's not the name of the town. It's not the name of anything else. And if we name whatever we name the Port Waikato, all in districts, Western whatevers, I didn't hear that was going to be consulted before we chose the name.
But the difference is that's going to be a new board. This is an existing board.
Look, hang on. I'll just move on to Councillor Patterson, because this is a local, incredibly contentious issue at a local level. So I don't have a view either way, but I'll go to Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Ellen. Look, I don't have a view either way, but I just wanted to make sure that we've separated the discussion with the rail station platform, because that was a directive from Kiwi Rail. They changed it at the 11th hour to flip their sign policy around to bilingual and have te reo as the first word. So that happened probably just a day or so before our infrastructure meeting when we made those decisions. So that's totally separate, and that went through no consultation, and it did really peeve a lot of people off in the Huntly community. And I've had that feedback to myself. So look, I personally, it does not worry me, but I'll just listen to the two local councillors on this. Thank you.
Look, this is a contentious issue at a local level, and I'm loath to get involved in it as well. And I hear that term, ain't broke, don't fix it. And maybe that's one way to approach it. we actually have only had, somebody might correct me here, but one submission from the community board that actually asked that. I think in the interest of this is bigger than just us making a decision around a community board name. I think I go to Councillor Church's default position. This needs a broader discussion, not just an arbitrary decision by a group of us sitting in a room here. So for that reason at all, I would be on the basis that we'd leave well alone.
We just put it to one side for now to give the community board a chance to check it themselves, because they haven't talked to anyone other than themselves.
And I think they do have a very strong view on it, but and everybody's got a concept on where the name comes from. But I take the concept of the name where it came from, and who told me. I think it's probably pretty right. So I do understand where the name came from. And you're right, Council, it had nothing to do with Huntley East. Okay, so so what do we do? Do we just leave it alone?
Yes.
Dale, can we just leave well alone?
Yep.
It's the Huntley Community Board. We just leave it as the Huntley Community Board.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What else did we have, Kayleen?
Lunch.
Yeah, that too.
Sorry, Your Worship, we need to go back to the names for wards, confirming the names.
Councillor Eyre, because she's going to tell me what she wants. Councillor Eyre.
Oh, thank you. I've been thinking, scratching my head, and initially when we discussed this proposal, I came up with Port Waikato, and basically because it seemed logical, because it follows the same general election name. But I was happy to take guidance from any of our community through the submission process. I note that there's actually only one submission pertaining to the name of the ward, and that proposed to actually go back to Te Akau, the ward of Te Akau, which I don't necessarily support because it is far vaster than just the community of Te Akau. But I do believe that once again, the rural component should be captured within the name. So, I mean, as a starting point, I would suggest something along the lines of Western Rural or Port Waikato Western Rural.
That is a ward. We're talking about the community board, and if you're going to, and I want to use that for a community board name.
No, we were talking about ward names, weren't we?
Oh, if you're talking about ward names, yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, we're cross purpose. So what did you say? Western wards?
I think we need a Western Rural ward.
Why don't you call it just Western districts?
Or Port Waikato / Western. We've got a slash in between our current ward name. Could we potentially have Port Waikato Western Rural?
Why confuse it then? Just call it Port Waikato.
Because it doesn't capture the vast majority of rural constituents.
That's why I suggested Western districts.
Western districts I would be happy with. Western districts.
Okay, Western districts it is. Rightio, now to the community board. Anton's shaking his hand. You can't do that. You can't do that.
I think you have to have the words general.
Yes.
Or general ward.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, but I'll cover all that off, Anton. All of the general wards must have general ward in their name, and that's why we're not wanting too long a name for each of the wards.
Okay, I will come back to you, Councillor Eyre, because you've got to think of a name for your new community board. Councillor Lynch.
Sorry, so I might have slipped up a little bit, not on the community board, but on the names. So would Huntley be Huntley?
Yes.
I mean the ward. Okay. So what I forgot to ask before was Pukamero Glen Afton. Is that what I don't remember.
No, they're like me. We're divorced from Huntley, which I don't have a problem with. And I don't particularly worried about that, councillor. It's only in this last term that they've actually come into that. So they used to be in the Wangapay ward, which I looked after, all the way from Glen Massey, all the way through to Rangiora. So,
but that was a lot of years ago, Ellen.
Yes, I know, councillor, but we start dabbling with the boundaries now, we'll have a problem. That's been signed off. I'm sorry. I'm not moving the boundaries now.
Canberra
Right.
ward.
Because if you move that, you move everything else. Anton again.
I just had left my hand up.
Oh, did you? I'll shoot you next time then. Councillor. Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
Right, community board name. Community
Yes,
board
that's
name.
right.
We have
Yeah.
a suggestion from Councillor Sedgwick, actually, which I'm really supportive of. Rural and Port Community Board.
That's a good one.
Yeah, well done, Jan.
Which makes you an acronym, and your acronym RAP.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's all right. You've got the port in there.
You can have rappers.
Anyone have a differing view on that? Okay, do we go, Councillor Church?
Yeah, thank you. I just think I think we just be careful about that naming. It's like halving the name because it's identified. I know there's very strong Port Waikato, so you want to put rural and Port Waikato. I know it doesn't. It upsets the name of the your acronym, Councillor Sedgwick, but it's kind of like Eastern Kawhata. So I think yeah, rural and Port Waikato, but I don't think to split the name is the best option. But yeah, I think we're getting close.
Do I have a third bid? I can feel lunch looming. Councillor Henderson.
I'm just wondering, since so many of the submissions came from the Onewhero area, whether they would be making the assumption that they would be the Onewhero Community Board.
Look, I'll go back to my original point. Every community board is named after a community of significance, which, not saying Onewhero and Pukekohe aren't, but Port Waikato is certainly a greater one, and it's a well-known name. So it's a community of 350 permanent residents there. So you've got to give it more prominence over everyone else. Councillor Eyre.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Councillor Henderson, but I would imagine that Onewhero by and large would be happy to be considered rural because that's the majority of where their interests lay. That said, I also take on board Councillor Church's comments and whether we just extend that rural and Port Waikato Community Board.
That's probably a better way of putting it around, actually, rural and Port Waikato. I don't care which way, it just needs to have port in there somewhere. All good? The two of you sorted it out? Okay. One resident, one non-resident, but the ward member seems to have sorted it out.
If we change the name of Port Waikato, we'd get different acronyms.
Yeah. All right, we're not going to work on the acronyms. Yeah, no, I'm pulling my hair out too, Councillor. So you happy to move that, Councillor, as a name? Seconder? Councillor Church? All in favour, raise a hand. Galen, have I got any more?
Just finalising all those ward names, Your Worship.
Oh, okay. I'll get my map back up again. So what did we end up going with? Tiger? No, Jaguar.
Jaguar. So in Jaguar, it had
Tamaheri. We'll start at the bottom of the map. So we'll just start with just straight Tamaheri. You happy with that, Rob?
Your Worship, that was unbecoming.
I just wondering whether, since it goes up that far, whether Tamaheri Wirikahu.
Hadn't thought of that one.
Because that covers one end, Tamaheri's one end, Wirikahu's the other end.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'll run with that.
You happy, Councillor Beck?
Yeah, that's fine. With the addition of the word,
got a view?
of course.
I almost would have said that was more Gordonton, but then cause obviously got Whitikahu Road, and I wonder if that might give some confusion. But that's my only point. And just while I was talking, I'm actually looking for a ward called Lee.
A ward called Lee?
Yeah, the General Lee. Yeah.
Oh. General Lee's been banned.
Oh, okay. You reckon there should be a good southern ward?
That's a bit of tongue in cheek there.
These are dad jokes, Councillor Willerton. Dad jokes.
So Tim Harry Whitiko, got that? You two are happy to move and second that? All in favour, raise a hand. Done. Next ward, Councillor Willerton, Councillor Gibb, you got a view up that way? Councillor Willerton, probably.
Oh, you're talking about, who are you doing? Narrawahi?
I'm doing the yellow one.
That's
Hookernoo Wairinga, happy with that. Because I think it's still the same.
Wairinga?
Oh,
Wairinga Hookernoo. Because
well, just however it flows. I'm used to saying it that way, but Wairinga, I don't care.
my reasoning is that the majority of the population is Te Kōwhata. Te Kōwhata is associated with Wairinga, but not with Hookernoo. And Hookernoo.
You happy to move that, Councillor?
Absolutely.
Second, Councillor Willerton.
Yep.
All in favour, please raise a hand. Well done. We move up into the swinging ward from coast to coast. Anybody got a name for that?
So what was proposed on the paper was Akaka Maramarua.
Yeah, that was right. That's what we came up with the other day. It covers off very strong views around what they call the 4 M's out to the east, those rural communities. So all good. Councillor Sedgwick, you happy to move that? Councillor Church?
Yeah, you're talking about the Northern Rural Ward?
Yes, we are.
So it's just because at the moment we've got a Northwest Waikato Community Committee and we've got a Northeast Community Committee already established out there. That I wonder whether it's just to simplify it to the North Waikato General Ward, because they're already, those two committees are already picking up part of that, and they're also identifying with the East and West.
What did you just say? North Waikato?
North Waikato General Ward.
General Rural?
General Rural, or North Waikato Rural Ward. Because both those committees in East and West have got,
Yeah, no, I get what you're going.
Yeah.
So it'll be North Waikato Rural
Ward.
General Ward.
Yeah.
Councillor Sedgwick?
I'm comfortable with that. I felt the Aka Tamara Marua did give people a very good steer as to actually what you were talking about, but I'm relaxed either way.
Yeah, and because the only other one I thought of was because you've got the Awaroa on the east side, but then you've got to go Awaroa Key something or other. I think it just makes it more complicated. So that's just trying to find a simplified version of it.
All righty, Councillor Henderson.
Yes, thank you. I'd actually thought Awaroa Ki Hunua, but Ki Maramarua General Ward. Awaroa Ki Maramarua General Ward.
Any of those is fine by me.
I'm easy with any of them.
Yeah.
Can we perhaps have a chat, think about it over at lunch? Or we're going to do it now?
No, we're not coming back after lunch, I'm sorry. I'm too close to the finishing line to break for lunch. I think
Awaroa Maramarua, I like it because it gives you some comfort in what you've already had. Maramarua is very different. It's a very definite place. Everybody knows it, and it just pulls the two together. We know they're in the north. We know they're in the east. We know they're in the west.
Okay.
That's cool.
That would be
good.
one
So
option.
you move it. Councillor Church has seconded it. All in favour, please raise a hand. Galen, you got that?
Yes.
Rightio. Now we go to Tuakau. It's just Tuakau, I presume. Tuakau Pocono, or what do you want to call it?
Tuakau Pocono.
Okay, Pocono.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That makes sense. Now back to Councillor Eyre, Western Districts.
Your Worship, I need a mover and a seconder for that.
Oh, Tuakau one. Councillor Church and Councillor Henderson down the bottom. All in favour, raise a hand. Done. Rightio. Now, Councillor Western Districts. I can get a cricket team for you.
I don't know if anyone else is confused, but I certainly am. Right, let's, okay. So on the table we had, just to clarify, we had the Rural and Port Waikato. We had,
Community Board.
Here, Community Board. So we've got the Western Districts as a ward name.
Yeah.
Can I include the name rural? Because I think that's, as I say, we've heard really strongly. rural.
Districts is an acronym for rural.
What is that?
Districts, the word districts leads to rural.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Well, I'm happy with that.
You happy with that?
Districts. Yeah.
Otherwise, it gets just too mouthy. Western
Yeah, okay.
districts is easy. And look, and I can tell you now, after you've said it a million times over the next few years, you'll be pleased it's shorter rather than longer.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that.
You're happy to move that? I'll second that. Am I going to live in it? So all in favour, please raise your hand. Rightio. The next one down is, well, Raglan's Raglan, or?
No, it's Whaingaroa proposed.
Whaingaroa, I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, Whaingaroa, that's a good name. And it
Leave it
doesn't
at
just, yeah, because it doesn't just say, because if it's Raglan, then people who are further out, like, they will think that they don't, yeah, I think Whaingaroa is much better.
Okay, cool, no problem. So you want to move, do we need to move that, do we? Yeah. Moved Councillor Thompson, seconded Councillor Beck. All in favour, please raise a wing. Done. Right, then we come right around to the proposed name for Ngaruawahia Newcastle, or Newcastle Ngaruawahia. Any discussion?
I'm happy with Ngaruawahia Newcastle.
Yep.
Any discussion?
Yep, I'm happy.
You happy?
No,
Yep.
I'm not.
Okay.
I think it should be Newcastle Ngaruawahia. If you
I don't care which way round it is.
Yeah, to be honest,
It
to
comes
be
from
honest,
the
Mary
west and
Ellen,
goes to
I could walk out this door and find a busload of people that have got bigger issues than Ngaruawahia Newcastle, Ngaruawahia. So I don't really care, to be honest.
How about
and I tell you, not many people will. When it comes around election times, that's when you see the name generally. Otherwise, people just get on with it. So, hey, Newcastle, Ngaruawahia, just do it. Fine by me.
Let's throw a bone to Councillor Smith, and so we'll go Newcastle Ngaruawahia. Hey, how's that sound, everyone?
Cool. Fine. Are you, Janet, happy with that?
Oh yeah, I just find it easier to say the other way, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I don't care. Just both names, fine.
All right, somebody like to move and second that, please. So it's Newcastle Ngaruawahia. Moved Councillor Patterson and Gibb. All in favour, raise a wing, please. Carried. Right, Galing.
And Huntley stays as Huntley.
Yeah. I think there's some more work that needs to be done around that before you start swinging into. It wouldn't have worried me if we'd included it, but I just think, based on the sentiments and the issues around it, it's a bear we probably shouldn't poke just at the moment.
Mary Ellen, what would the Huntley councillors think of Ngaruawahia North?
What have you been drinking?
I think we should take this offline because it's going to get a bit touchy.
All right.
Read my lips, boy.
All the land titles in Huntley are called Taupo.
Yeah, exactly.
So why don't we make it Taupo?
So I just need a mover and seconder for that, Your Worship, because it wasn't initially part of the central Drennan ward.
Okay. Councillor Maguire and McAnally, all in favour, say aye. Raise the ring.
Councillor Maguire.
Oh, hang on. Councillor McAnally and Lynch.
Lynch and McAnally.
Okay, Lynch and McAnally.
Thank you.
I don't know who's on top here.
Stand behind.
Rightio, everyone fly a wing, please, and support. Done. Right, we need to go back to the recommendations at the beginning of the report that we left out, along with all the amendments that we've done, or not amendments, the decisions that have been made today. Gayleen?
Just let me refresh my memory of what was in the recommendations, because I think you've covered it off by all your discussion.
I know, but I only moved to receive the deliberations report and submissions. The rest of it, consider additional information provided by staff within the deliberations report and issues, goes on and on. So I need to move all that as well.
B to D. Yep.
Yeah, B to D. That's the way to say it. So is there somebody happy to move that? Councillor Beck? Seconder, please. Councillor Gibb. All in favour, please raise a wing. Carried. Do we have any outstanding issues, Galen?
No, I believe we've covered everything off, Your Worship.
Right, look, I just want to sum up here before we all go and have a bit of lunch. I firstly want to thank you for completing it by 1 o'clock. But I just want to thank you all for having the patience to get through this today. It's not easy, and I really, really, really want to thank Galen, Anton, Matt, who else was in there? Dale's been there. Matt, Anton, Galen. I think I've got all them. And everyone else, Axel especially. Axel's worked his butt off working with the team to get this through. And I tell you what, you can only imagine how much work has gone on since Friday afternoon. And I just need to thank everybody that's been done that, because it's way beyond what they would normally do in a weekend.
And Dale, Your Worship.
Yeah, I knew Dale. I knew he was sitting in the screen nodding his head, looking for self-gratification, but we'll give it to him anyway. But I just can't thank everybody enough for what you've done here. And I know it's not perfect, because nothing ever is perfect in life, unfortunately. And there will be people that'll be happy, there'll be people that'll be peeved off, and there'll be people that'll be disappointed. And we'll hear from those people through the appeals process. But I think we've run a pretty good process. It's the best process. And I've done this quite a number of times now. The fact we went back and actually consulted with communities, community groups, and brought that work through, and then really listened to the submissioners. Now, I'm not always, I don't mind saying this, I'm not always the best at listening to all submitters, but I think the other day the instructions I gave the team on Saturday morning is we must listen to what our submitters were telling us. And I think we've actually followed that. Not everything, I'd probably say a good 90% of it we actually have been able to fulfill. So I'm pretty happy with that. Councillor,
didn't listen to Pukamiro Glen Afton.
What's that?
You didn't listen to Pukamiro Glen Afton.
If I listened to Pukamiro and Glen Afton, somebody else would be disenfranchised somewhere else. So, Councillor Eyre.
I just wanted to make a comment about how we've run this process, and largely through the Zoom. You know, the feedback I've had has been phenomenally in support of it. People have enjoyed watching our decision making, they've enjoyed watching here and listening to other submissions. So this has actually worked. I know it's not ideal, and some people do struggle, but to me, you know, change is always hard to grapple with, but this has actually been really successful. But can I just ask for one further request? When the team have a spare moment, and I'm sure they're all going on holiday now, but are we able to obtain a more detailed map of that Jaguar ward map? Thank you very much, everyone.
Anton will produce a map that's actually an overlay on a map, a road map, I'm presuming, Anton. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We do have to go through the process of validating with Statistics New Zealand, which will more than likely have one or two things that we would have to look at in detail. So there are a couple of steps, and the process will be producing more detailed maps and then sort of production grade maps for the final decision with detail at street level.
Because the resolution, Your Worship, has to include those boundary areas and everything, so it will be more detailed on the 28th.
Yeah, and I think that's where you'll get that from, Councillor Eyre. Okay, Councillor Church.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on the same lines as Councillor Eyre, and I'm just really thinking a lot about Mercer as well. The map of the Jaguar and Tiger, the only differences I can see of the Jaguar and Tiger were around the movement of Mercer. All the other, everything else on all the other wards was the same. So can I also have a detailed map of the Tiger as well as the Jaguar, please? Just for clarity, because I think there's no other movement in any other ward, but just that, just understanding of those locals.
Yeah, there was a little bit of movement down on the Whangaroa ward.
Right, okay, but yeah, a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But if that's possible,
yeah, that's all good.
Yeah.
Rightio. Everyone all good? Are you all good, Dale?
Yeah, I think it was a really good process. So well done, team. councillors and mayor. I thought it was very robust, so well done. Just one observation is that you still have Western District's general ward that's minus 18%. So just be mindful that because you're out of the range of plus or minus 10%, it will go off to the commission anyway.
Yeah, that's cool. I think probably to cover that off though, it looks big, but there's nobody home in most of it. All right. I think that probably concludes us, Galen.
Yes, Your Worship.
All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your effort.
Councillor Beck's got a question.
Councillor Beck.
I was just going to add my thanks to the team again, the team behind, and in fact, there's many other parts of the organisation which we haven't been conscious of, but who've still been part of this. You know, for example, the Galen, I think it was the comms team, put together part of the deliberation report, you know, pulling out submissions in theme.
Corporate planning.
Corporate planning. And there's been quite a few other bits of the organisation that behind the scenes have supported this process. So yeah, it's really been a large effort, stretching back a year and a half. And yeah, just really thankful for the way that we've pulled together to come to this point now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to call it quits because I'm going to hear my tummy rumbling. I'll go off and enjoy a nice lunch and have a quiet afternoon, everybody. And I'll see you whenever I see you next.
Your Worship, the meeting that was sent out for Thursday afternoon. So there is still a workshop portion to that. So we will update the invite. So there is still a workshop starting at 1 o'clock.
What's the workshop for?
Three Waters.
Oh, okay. So we're turning the representation into a Three Waters workshop. Yeah, that's all right. I don't have a problem with that.
So are we meeting tomorrow between 10 and 11? I see things come.
Hello.
No.
It's with the community boards and community committee chairs.
It's just a bi-monthly catch-up, Rob.
Well, that all of us.
Yeah, it's just a chit-chat about how the world's gone round in the last month. So
yeah.
So sorry, is that all of us?
Yeah, and the community board chairs.
ELT at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Mayor Allen, can I just ask Galen a question? With the Thursday now workshop, how long is that going to go for? Because that overlaps a solid waste steering committee Zoom meeting that we've got at 1 p.m. too. So I'd like, if possible, to be able to move that out a bit later if I can with staff. It's just important that we sort of keep kicking along with that.
They've indicated an hour. They only require an hour, but Gavin would have more idea about that.
So my guess would be around an hour, maybe an hour and a quarter, something like that. Councillor Patterson, a lot of it will be information you and the mayor got yesterday. Okay. So it'll be bringing it, as we talked before, the earlier workshop we did on the 1st of September was to try and bring councillors up to speed, and this workshop will be another step which is more specific about, as you know, more specific about our position and where we sit. So
okay, so just while we're in here, the other councillors that are on that steering committee, if the staff are available for 3 o'clock for solid waste, are we okay to do that? Cool. Yep. Okay, thank you.
So can I just mention one other thing? I got an invitation for the audit and risk. We're not invited, all of us invited to that, are we, or are we?
Well, it's just it's an audit and risk meeting, Rob, but what it is all councillors are entitled to show up if they wish to, but it's only the appointed ones that have the voting rights there.
Anyway.
If you want something to put you to sleep, Rob, by all means join us.
And that's, as you say, Your Worship, the invite goes out to all councillors because it is a committee meeting.
Yeah.
Right then, but we've got this thing on Three Waters on 1 o'clock Thursday.
Correct, yeah. So I'll get that invitation resent because currently it sits in my diary as representation review deliberations. So Galen, can you reset that for me, please? Or yes. Matt? One and two. Matt. All right, like your haircut, Matt. Got you thinking. Okay, Gavin, do you have anything else?
No.
No. All right, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate your effort in the last few days. We'll catch you all later.
Yes, thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Very good.